As of this writing, I've had about 2 months with the Nintendo Switch 2, and I have some thoughts. The most striking thing about the new console has been the size. It's huge and it's heavy, which has been a bit of an inconvenience when playing in handheld mode, where I spend the majority of my playtime. It's so surprising now picking up the Switch 1 because it's so light in comparison. I do kind of miss the size of it, but the bigger, brighter screen on the Switch 2 is very nice. The first game I played on the Switch 2 was Xenoblade Chronicles X. When I booted it up for the first time, I could immediately tell that it was running at a lower resolution than the screen's resolution. You could see this jaggedness and pixelation on the character models as well as on the UI, especially on the text. I never noticed anything like this on the Switch 1. Apparently, the game has variable resolution, topping out at 720p in handheld mode, which is the same resolution as the Switch 1's screen. This means that at least in this one aspect, the experience of playing this particular game is actually worse on the Switch 2 than it is on the Switch 1. Fortunately, it is easy to get used to, and I did stop noticing it after a bit more playtime. In docked mode, the game looks super sharp and gorgeous. The most significant issue I encountered with the Switch 2 was with the ZL button. That's the trigger button on the left Joy-Con. It kind of felt a bit mushy to press, and I found that if you pressed it in certain ways, it would not register the inputs. It felt and performed noticeably different than the ZR button on the right Joy-Con. You could also see a physical difference when looking at the Joy-Cons from the top. The gap on the left one seemed to widen to one side, while the gap on the right Joy-Con was nice and even. I did some searching and it seems this is a common issue based on the Reddit threads I was able to find. People reported being able to get outright replacements for their Joy-Cons with this issue. I called the local retailer where I bought my Switch 2 from, Data Blitz, but they informed me that they would have to take my entire Switch 2, not just the faulty Joy-Con, and send the whole thing over to their technical team to have it assessed. They said this would take anywhere between 7 and 40 days, and presumably there was no guarantee that I'd get a replacement. I really didn't want to give up my Switch 2 for that long, as I was still working on a bunch of videos for this channel. The ZL button did still work, I just had to press it the right way. I had resigned myself to the notion of just living with it, but then I saw a comment on the Nintendo PH subreddit saying they'd been able to get a replacement from the official Nintendo Service Center here in the Philippines, which I did not know existed. So I sent them an email, booked an appointment, and went over to their branch in Taguig. There was a little bit of a wait, but when I got called, they just tested the Joy-Con, concluded there was something wrong with it, and then gave me a new one. No questions, no hassle, problem solved. So if you've got an issue, skip the retailer and just send the service center an email. If you've got the PHL sticker, then you do have warranty for at least a year. You may have 2 years actually, but we'll talk more about that later. Okay, let's talk games. If you watched my unboxing video, then you know that I didn't get the Mario Kart World Bundle. I'm not really much of a Mario Kart guy, so I didn't really see the point. However, I have come to regret that decision. The price difference between the bundle and standalone console is smaller than the price of the game, so it probably would have been worth it just to try the game out. Perhaps I would have been converted into a fan, like I was converted by Super Mario Odyssey, which I initially expected not to like. The vast majority of my playtime on the Switch 2 has been with Xenoblade X, which I had already been playing on the Switch 1. To me, this game plays pretty much the same on Switch 1 and 2, so I haven't really been able to make full use of the upgraded hardware. I also wanted to pick up the Switch 2 upgrade for Tears of the Kingdom, but I really wanted to get it on the Philippines eShop. I thought that Nintendo would have that ready and launched at the same time as the Switch 2's launch, but that was not the case. And about 2 months later, there's still no updates on that front, so who knows when that's coming. I eventually decided to just buy it already, and now I'm playing it. More on that in the next chapter. There are a few other games I'm considering playing next. I actually bought the Switch 1 version of Suikoden 1 and 2 back when the release window of the Switch 2 here in the Philippines was from July to September. Of course, the release date ended up being much earlier, June 26, so I do wish I'd waited a little bit longer and picked up the Switch 2 version of the game instead, as there's no upgrade pack option, unlike with games like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Yes, I know that it probably doesn't matter too much for this game in particular, and I'm I'm really not the type of player to care too much about things like resolution and frame rate. At this point, I really just want to own actual Switch 2 games. I also briefly considered Cyberpunk 2077 as it would be a great test of the Switch 2's upgraded hardware, plus I'd get to try out mouse mode. But it just feels like a bad idea when I can get it on PC instead. I will probably pick up Donkey Kong Bonanza, but its current price is a lot higher than what I've been used to paying for games, so I might end up waiting on a sale of some kind. It's pretty disappointing considering this is a $70 game, launching at 3,850 pesos, while Tears of the Kingdom was also a $70 game but launched at 2,890 pesos. I had this whole plan for comparing games between Switch 1 and 2 involving playing them back to back on both consoles. I wanted to do it with Super Mario Odyssey, Tears of the Kingdom, and Pokemon Scarlet. And I did start it out with Odyssey, but didn't actually notice much of a difference playing it in handheld mode. I then started Tears of the Kingdom, and I just kept playing it, all thoughts of content exiting my mind. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom just own me, man. I played through both games multiple times for a combined 500 plus hours and counting. And now I'm back with the Switch 2 upgrade, and I've realized that there's quite a lot to talk about, so I'll probably make a separate video on this subject. I may push through with the testing on Super Mario Odyssey and Pokemon Scarlet, and I may include all of that as well. Make sure you're subscribed if you're interested in watching any of that. What I can comment on is battery life. We knew going in that the Switch 2 would be a downgrade in terms of battery life, and I have found this to be true. I never really played Xenoblade X for long enough sessions to notice, but again, Tears of the Kingdom owns me, and it is a bit alarming how quickly the battery drains on long play sessions. I'm sure you can find some rigorous scientific testing for this kind of thing, but I'm just going to tell you about my experience. On my V2 Switch 1, I was never really ever concerned about running out of battery. I rarely ever even got down past 50%. On Switch 2, I can go all the way down to 20%, and this is as a mostly at-home player, so it's not great. The whole pricing saga for the Switch 2 was pretty crazy here in the Philippines. Initially, you had the scalper types trying to sell off Hong Kong units at ridiculous prices to those who couldn't wait for June 26. And then the pre-orders opened at the local game stores, as well as on Nintendo's official Shopee store, and we saw what we thought would be the real price of the console. I was so disappointed when I saw this. It was lower than the scalper prices, but higher than I expected, and it had me debating whether or not I should even go through with it. I decided to just bite the bullet and pre-order, holding on to the hope that this wasn't yet the final price. With just a few days left before June 26, there was still no official announcement of pricing, but people were posting how much they got charged to settle their pre-order balances, and it was indeed a slightly lower price. June 26 rolled around, and one particular local retailer, Game Extreme, had a flash sale that temporarily brought the price down even further. At this point, it started to feel like you were a sucker for pre-ordering. We were lined up early at the Data Blitz branch I picked for my pre-order, and there were maybe 10 others. Looking right across the hall into the Game Extreme at this same mall, you could see numerous Switch 2 boxes on display and 0 people inside. If I had skipped the pre-order, I could have just gone into this store and picked up a Switch 2 faster than it would have taken me to line up to settle my pre-order at Data Blitz. Let's talk some more about games pricing. When I heard that the Switch 2 was officially coming to the Philippines with eShop and all, I foolishly thought that this would keep prices from going into unfair territory. If you look at Nintendo's official Shopee store, however, they've had some insane prices for Switch 2 games. At the time of this writing, Tears of the Kingdom for Switch 2 goes for anywhere between 3,500 and 3,700 pesos from all the local game stores. But Nintendo's Shopee has it for 5,380, and it previously went for as high as 6,500. It seems to be the same story for all the Switch 2 games they have listed. The Loop also has some Switch 2 games listed at these same prices, so it looks like this is just the price from the official Nintendo distributor. More on that in just a little bit. RIP to the people actually buying these. Something I learned pretty recently, so long after I'd already bought my Switch 2, is that not every Switch 2 is covered by the same warranty over here in the Philippines, according to some articles from Philstar Tech. To get a 2-year warranty, you'd have to buy from a store that's part of the VST-ECS distribution network. VST-ECS was appointed as Nintendo's official distributor in the Philippines in 2023, and none of the local game stores that you'd be familiar with, Data Blitz, Game Extreme, Game Game 1 and Game Line are part of this network. According to the listing for the Switch 2 at DataBlitz's online store, my Switch 2 only has 1-year warranty from a Nintendo authorized service center plus an additional 1-year store warranty. This is pretty disappointing, and I had no idea about this difference before buying the Switch 2. Hell, if this article from Philstar Tech, where a journalist had to go directly to VSTECS and ask them about it, hadn't appeared on my feed, then I would still not know about it. I checked DataBlitz's Facebook post from May 29 when the pre-orders first opened, and there was no warranty information there. The link to the pre-order page is dead now, but I was able to find 2 snapshots on the Wayback Machine dated June 1 and June 15. Neither page had any warranty information, so I didn't know about it, and I probably couldn't have known about it. It's all pretty disappointing. Hopefully I won't have any need for that extra year of Nintendo warranty. So how do I feel about the Nintendo Switch 2 overall so far? Well, all of the mess surrounding it, the warranty, pricing, pre-ordering, wasn't pleasant. And pricing continues to be unpleasant, especially from official Nintendo sources. Hopefully it all goes down over time as the hype fades. I guess this all comes with the territory of being an early adopter. I was not one of those with the Switch 1, so I don't really know. Using the console itself though has been great. Is it a significant upgrade over its predecessor? To be perfectly honest, I was very satisfied with my Switch 1. If I weren't doing this whole YouTube thing, I probably would not have picked up the Switch 2 right away. I probably would have waited for the price to inevitably drop. There aren't any must-have exclusive games yet, at least not for a non-Mario Kart player like me. If everything I've heard and read about DK Bonanza is accurate though, it looks like it's going to be the first, and I'm pretty excited for it. Now I'd like to hear from you. Did you pick up a Switch 2? How has it been so far? What are you playing? Any horror stories about pricing or warranty from your corner of the world? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.